If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/realid or visit your local DMV.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, May the 6th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get it going. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So we gave a due shout out to Travis Crickett, St. John's native, who's part of the coaching staff at Team Canada's World Championship victory at the U18s. Apparently there was another person from the province as part of that team, equipment manager, important position for sure. AJ Murley was part of the squad. I want to make sure you gave him his due as well. And lots of boisterous Leaf fans in my email inbox overnight and into this morning as they held off the prancing Panthers, defending Stanley Cup champions, to win Game 1. So Leafs fans excited. Fair ball. I heard Russell Bauer speaking with Katarina Roxon. Of course, Katarina, the pride of Kippens, is a 5-time Paralympian, one of the best athletes we have ever produced here in this province, and she's getting an honorary degree at Memorial University in the next go-round. Congratulations to her and all hands. It just got me thinking about this past week and sifting through some of the sports that I love to watch, which includes swimming. American great Katie Ledecky, she's really something else. So this weekend, she broke her own world record in the 800-meter freestyle. She's had that record since 2016, 2 seconds faster than anybody else. She's got the 10 fastest times in that discipline in history and plans on swimming again in the next Olympics. I know she's American, but when you're one of the greats, you're one of the greats. All right, one of the greats. 71 years ago today, 1954. British medical student, 25 years of age, Roger Bannister, became the first human being to break the 4-minute mark in the mile. There's a strange phenomenon in this world, certainly in the world of athletics. Unless someone does it, it seems that no one can or will ever be able to do it. And that was certainly the consensus regarding the ability for anyone to ever break the 4-minute mark in the mile. Once it happened, his record stood for 46 days. Within a year, 4 men had also matched the accomplishment. To this date, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 people have broken the 4-minute barrier. So Roger Bannister, of course, went on to become a neurologist. So on this date, 1954. Okay, let's keep going. So, intra-provincial trade. Lots of talk about intra-provincial trade, and we got to get down to the brass tacks and figure that out sooner than later. And in the world of intra-provincial travel, certainly when it comes to air travel, Labradorians are miffed, to put it mildly, with being left out of the most recent announcement regarding an arrangement between the provincial government and PAL for the intra-provincial air loop, St. John's, Gander, Deer Lake. Certainly it's there to aid the tourism business. That's important. But Labradorians are rightfully saying, hey, it's one thing to subsidize and support visitors to the province. How about people that live in the province? The government says they're working towards some options to stabilize or to bring prices back to earth because they're completely outrageous. Some of the emails that came in overnight, I guess spurred on by comments we've heard from people like Leila Evans and Jordan Brown, who are justifiably upset about this. People asking questions like, do we even belong as part of the province? Are we thought of and treated as a part of the province? There's certainly enormous wealth comes out of Labrador, so I get where they're coming from. The conversation is decades old and seemingly only getting worse. A couple of questions that I would have is, how does that conversation sound between PAL and the provincial government? I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, certainly to try to get around the island in particular with the shortage of rental cars, the cost of rental cars, and they want to spread the tourists around to pepper the entire island and Labrador with tourism dollars. So I understand it. But how does the conversation sound? What went on there? And most importantly, what's the subsidy? You know, of course, PAL will get some additional revenue, but they probably had to be brought to the table with some sort of incentive. So it'd be curious to know what that is. And how does that jibe with the ongoing conversation to make things easier, better, more affordable for people living in Labrador? Happy to take it on if you're so inclined. And then some of those emails also included a reference to the fixed link. The fixed link has been talked about for quite a long time. And by the look of it, it's on the back burner. The federal Liberals took it into their convention. They put it in the hands of the Infrastructure Bank of Canada. Nothing's happened. And I haven't heard one peep from the provincial government in years. So what would the next stage be? Is there an economic model that makes the fixed link something that should be entertained? If you're living in Labrador, they would say 100% it is. But we can have the conversation. Curiously enough, on this day in 1994, the Channel Tunnel was open, fixed link between Britain and Europe. So it's between Kent, England and Calais, France. Some 10 million people per year use the Channel, as it's affectionately nicknamed. So it cost €9 billion to construct, took about 6 years, travels at about just close to 100 miles an hour. So it can be done. The technology is 100% available. Is there a political will? Is there an economic model that says it should be entertained? Your conversation, your comments, most welcome here on the program this morning. All right. So in the news today, and I'm sure it happens more often than not, is there's a lady who's been ticketed by the Bonavista RCMP for failing to stop for a school bus. No one was hurt, but one of these days, if people don't stop when you're supposed to stop, when the bus is stopped and the stop sign is deployed and the lights are flashing, regardless of which direction you're going, you have to stop. I cannot for the life of me understand why people continually break that particular law. One of these days, the headline is going to be tragic. So let's hope that that doesn't happen. And that's only going to be the case if people knock it off. You can't be in that big a hurry to get anywhere, to jeopardize a bus passenger, and in this case, a school bus, and a child getting on or off the bus. We can't have them end up in your bumper. So the ticket can be pretty severe, $500 to $1,500 and 6 demerit points. Let's just make sure that every ticket handed out for this is $1,500 and 6 demerit points. So come on, folks. Let's all collectively, in our quiet thoughts here, just swear to ourselves we're never going to do that, because it's just unbelievable. Anyway, we won't take it on. We can do it. All right, I continue to get some photographs and some updates on community cleanups. And if you'd like me to advertise one in your area, just send me a note. I'll be happy to give it a shout out. And then it's the conversation and the pictures we see regarding discarded needles. They're everywhere, and we know it to be true. One thing is when the comments came in about needles that were stuck in the trees, I mean, I don't know if that was a user trying to keep the needle off the ground, away from your pet, away from your child, or it was staged just to make a point. But one way or the other, you know, it's probably worth that conversation, especially when we entertain a community cleanup and we involve our children to try to plant the seed of being good stewards of the environment and to keep their neighborhood clean. That very careful awareness of what might be lurking on the ground or even under something. You can go and pick up a chip bag and it might be sitting atop a discarded needle. So, and call, if you're living in the city, for instance, call the city, let them deal with it, because you never know what might happen if indeed you pick one up. Okay. And it's Mental Health Week. We've had a couple of conversations on the program, and over the course of the year, we welcome it. It's not just Mental Health Day or Mental Health Month, which is this month, the month of May, but the conversations are critically important, so let's bring it forward. You could be anonymous and caller on line 3, or you can come on and tell your story, or if you've had an experience in interacting with the new mental health and addictions facility, let's talk about that as well. On that front, these are anxious times. They really, truly are. You can get that distinct sense. Now, some people are quite content and doing well and not a whole lot to worry about. But for most people, anxiety is a real deal. It can be overwhelming. It can be debilitating. So I read an article the other day that made a couple of interesting observations regarding anxiety and what we sometimes do to ourselves. It's not purposeful that you want to put yourself in a sad state of affairs or in a worrisome state, but anxiety can creep up and can absolutely have a debilitating negative spiral. So things like catastrophizing. So many of us, and sometimes me, you spend too much time worried about the worst possible outcome. And we kind of do it to ourselves. And then we try to read other people's minds and get into their head, wondering what that person thinks of me, what that person says about me, those types of things, which leads us to just feel so anxious. And then it's looking down the line, doing some fortune telling, once again with possible worst case scenarios. Then it's the black and white. There's only two possible outcomes. I either fail miserably or I'm triumphant. And I do it to myself too. So I'm only throwing it out because I think sometimes if we step back and try to step out of our head, we can probably diminish some of the moments of anxiety too. And then we overgeneralize all the time, right? You're at work and you've got a big appointment or a presentation in front of the staff, and before you even get to open your mouth to present the first point, you've got the outcome already predicted. And of course, it's easier said than done to try to get it out of our own way. But some of those things, maybe they can be helpful this mental health month. All right, and with health, I haven't heard much, but I think it was a great idea what they've done in Nova Scotia. So nobody, whether it be staff, patient, visitor, is going to have to pay for parking anymore. It might not be the biggest deal in the world, but when you're interacting with the healthcare system, it brings on obvious anxiety and worry. And so the last thing you need is to have to be worried about parking and the price for parking. So in the province of Nova Scotia, and it was implemented as of the 1st of May, it's only going to cost the provincial government some $19 million. So you imagine it's probably less here in this province, but entertaining that might be a pretty good idea. All right. Then let's get into some world of regulations. Regulation can be a dirty word, and in some areas of our life, we are overregulated. It really does feel that way, but in some areas, it's noticeably absent. So when we talk about building houses and, having a registry for approved contractors so that you know what you're getting yourself into, folks who have been bonded and have carry insurance and workers' comp and all the rest have a good reputation. But what we don't have is a regulatory body for home inspectors. Anybody can hang out with a shingle and say, I'm a home inspector. I don't think that's very wise. I mean, for the vast majority of us, it's the biggest single purchase we'll ever make in our life. And when someone who doesn't have the appropriate training and or experience signs off as you go to have an inspection of a home that you're considering to buy, and then lo and behold, that person didn't know what they were talking about, and you bought yourself a housing lemon with all the expense that comes with it. So maybe it's time to do that. And this story here, I never really thought of it, but another area in this province that we don't see regulated, unlike in Nova Scotia, I like using Nova Scotia as an example, they seem to be doing a couple of interesting things. It's cosmetology. Never thought of it for a second. I'm not opposed to getting a mani and a pedi. Don't mind admitting it. And fellas, if you think it's only for the ladies, do yourself a favor and get a pedi. Anyway. So in that world, using chemicals and, sharp tools, what have you, we don't have any required training or education, nor is there a regulatory body, even in the world of hairstyling, which are using chemicals. Now, I'm not suggesting we should be able to run to a regulatory association and say, hey, I got a bad hairdo. But there are things, whether it be the cleanliness and the training and the appropriate sanitary surroundings that you should be able to enjoy when you go to get yourself some anesthetic work and or to get your hair do. So I saw that story. I thought, that's interesting. Never even thought of it before, but that's out there. You want to take it on? Let's go. All right. I never thought in my lifetime we'd be living through having to negotiate a tariff-based trade war with the United States. It's a head-scratcher when you sit back and think about it. Today, how do we set this up? So Prime Minister Carney will be meeting with the President in the White House today. Carney clearly presented himself as the best option to navigate this particular trade war and relations with the Americans. So like I say, the campaign part is the easy part. The governance and delivery is far harder, more difficult. So what can we expect today? So the Prime Minister really did heap the pressure on himself. Can we anticipate any actual positive negotiated outcome today? Highly unlikely. Not even really sure how to approach it. If you're the Prime Minister, I'm smarter than me, and I'm sure a team surrounding him have come up with some sort of strategy for today. What it's likely going to include, though, is for the TV camera ambush in the Oval Office, which is just an awful way to have to enter into these very tricky and complicated negotiations. But here we go. I don't know what to expect, but, when we talk about the tariffs, it's so frustrating. And that will impact this province if they do indeed, the Americans that is, follow through with some of the most recent threats. Say, for instance, just a 100% threat on the film industry. Any film not made in the United States will face a 100% tariff to be screened in the United States. And the justification there is the same flimsy justification regarding fentanyl. Talking about it being a risk to national security. Like, what does that even mean? Apparently, the White House thinks that if an American-written script is going to be produced in Canada, all of a sudden it would use propaganda? Or some of this stuff is almost too silly to say out loud, but it's real and it's what's being said by the White House. So here we go. And if you want to take it on, we can do it. And if anyone anticipates some sort of broker deal today, I don't think it's coming. Then it's even, how do you present knowing what may indeed satisfy the president? Whether it be on border security and the pledge that's already been made, some $1.3 billion worth of additional beefed up security. Okay. Whether it be trying to rationalize the nonsense surrounding the fact that the Americans say they're subsidizing us when that's not a thing. So where do we go from here? There's a lot on the line. And once again, the Prime Minister has told us he's the best positioned to navigate this, so let's see where it goes. It's going to be awful if we see something akin to the ambush of Ukrainian President Zelensky, because that was ridiculous. We're talking about people's lives on the line, and we're talking about severe economic impact here if this is a prolonged standoff. So if you want to bring forward your thoughts, let's do exactly that today. All right. And the Conservative Party, Andrew Scheer, who looks like he's going to be the interim leader, say they're willing to work with the Liberal government on issues like this, if and when they get some other things, whether it be the tough on crime. And the Prime Minister says there's going to be money to hire another additional 1,000 members of the RCMP. So there's just so much to talk about that I'll let you tell me exactly how you want to approach it. And in the tariff war, I think there's some clear examples where we haven't been thinking for ourselves. The biggest battle currently in trade is between the Americans and the Chinese, and it's intense. When then President Biden put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, we quickly followed suit. I know that the federal government, there's been some $46.1 billion worth of pledges to try to create jobs and to create a supply chain regarding electric vehicles and batteries for all purposes, not just EVs. Many things that you touch today will have semiconductors and batteries that we can indeed do more here. But those tariffs, of course, were reciprocated by the Chinese. 106% tariff on canola. It's not the biggest industry in the country, but it's important for those working in it and the jobs that are created to support the industry. And then there's 25% tariff on pork and on seafood. So was it necessary for us to even do that? Is there a balance to be struck? For instance, average price of an EV, and if you're interested in one, good for you. If you're not, fair enough. Average price of an electric vehicle in this country is around 40 grand. And it can climb much higher from there. There's a Chinese electric vehicle that you can buy for about 13,000. It's made by a company called BYD. I can't remember the actual name of the vehicle itself. So one thought out there is, if we're going to offer incentives to people, if they are so inclined to buy an electric vehicle, only allow that incentive to be applied to vehicles made in this country, as opposed to the Chinese vehicles. I don't know what the answer is, but it really kind of feels like the concept of elbows up and the tariffs that this country has imposed on the Americans and anybody else, me and you are going to pay it, just like the Americans are going to pay this irresponsible, unjustified tariff that's been imposed on a variety of products from this country and from others. I'm sure Mr. Carney, the Prime Minister, will be focusing on steel and aluminum specifically today, but I'm anxiously awaiting what looks like it might be an absolute gong show, but important all the same. And then for Mr. Poilievre, I still get tons of feedback regarding the fact that he lost his seat in Carleton, and people continually point at the fact there was 91 names on the ballot, which I think is an exaggerated problem. But it is some form of a problem. So the longest ballot group that were responsible for putting all those names on the ballot, in the by-election that's pending, yet to be called, in Alberta, where Mr. Poilievre intends to run, they're talking about trying to put 200 names on the ballot. Look, even if we have to understand their right to do exactly that, is if at the very top of the ballot, because it's alphabetical order, if at the top of the ballot there are the so-called much more serious parties and candidates, including independents and including all the registered parties, if they were featured at the top of the ballot and the rest of the names were under it, we quell some of the worries people bring forward. You can indeed find your preferred candidate's name. All you have to do is look. Similar to how Mr. Fanjoy, who won for the Liberals in Carleton, he was on the same 91-person ballot, but it does come across as really odd, even though allowed by law, but if you want to take it on. And of course, tricky time. Mr. Poilievre is going to run in Alberta at the exact same time where the very, very loud minority are talking separation. And he's going to be representing a riding that very likely has a lot of people who are in favour of separating. And that's going to be, once again, complicated mess for Mr. Poilievre to try to tiptoe through, tiptoe around, and or jump over. But anyway, you want to take it on, we can do it. And talking about trade, today's day one of the Barcelona Seafood Show, and I know Danny Doomresk and Labrador Gem are over there, and when we talk about diversifying markets, with our seat arrangement, with the European Union, you think there should be more opportunities there, especially for our seafood. Very quick note, has something to do with radio. On this day, 1915, Orson Welles was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Of course, director, writer, producer, actor. Most famous for Citizen Kane, his very first film, still regarded as one of the very best in the world, but also in the world of radio. He broadcasted a show called War of the Worlds, and it frightened the death out of countless listeners who they didn't know they were listening to a theatrical news report because the warning was of Martian invasion. As a result of the fear that was stoked by that, the FCC actually established rules against hoaxes to avoid unnecessarily scaring people and to tie up emergency phone lines. But Orson Welles born on this day, 1915, War of the Worlds. All right, we're on Twitter or VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. I'm going to be away for the next couple of days, so it's your last opportunity for a few days to have a chat with me, take a swat at me, or bring up a topic that's important to you. Nick's in the queue to talk about the cell service, and Dana's got some concerns regarding Transformers. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Nick. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Excellent today. How about you?
Oh, I'm pretty good. So I've been traveling back and forth for St. John's now ever since I started playing hockey. And I can remember before they brought in these 5G service towers, most spots on the highway, there's only very few that you couldn't send a text at the very least. You couldn't get a call, but at least you could send a text message. But now that these 5G towers got in, you can't even get a call. So I was on the way back from St. John's there Sunday. And as I was on the way, there was 2 cars that pulled off. A tire had come off of one of them and hit the other car. Airbags deployed, so we had to call 911. They couldn't hear me until I walked half a kilometer up the highway on the side of the road, and even then it was still cutting in. And if they had been in any sort of life-threatening condition, there's no doubt in my mind that they would have passed, because it was just too long of a response. Now, I got to give them credit. As soon as they could get my location, it was only 15 minutes it took them to get from Deer Lake to Hampton Junction. But that was still almost another 15 minutes for me to be able to tell them where I was to. So if there's no way in this day and age, we can't have cell service across the highway.
I agree, 100%. People will talk about the convenience of not being in hot spots or, we're paying for a service that the companies are not delivering on, and there's a lot of merit to that. The big telcos, they're not going to pay much in the way of additional monies to build, whether it be the additional towers that are required and to beef up their systems, because their business model doesn't add up to the number of subscribers that they have here in this province, which is a dreadful thing for me and you, the folks who actually pay the bills. On that front, The public safety issue, I think, is the most important point in all of this. So last year there was a pilot project along the Burgeo Highway, and they have indeed gone to the market looking for expressions of interest for Wi-Fi hotspots. They're looking to add 10. So it's helpful, but what will be the impact of it if the 5G towers are one of the biggest culprits? Because people tell me these very clear stories. I used to be able to sit in my living room, look out the window, see the cell tower, and I used to be able to get all 4 bars. No problem sending a text. Now with 5G, they don't even have connectivity and they can see the tower. So there's a lot of complications there. Hopefully the government gets all 10 expressions returned and we can fill up those hotspots ASAP. But if we don't lean on the public safety issue, we're not going to get anywhere. Because the big telecom companies, and I don't care if any representatives listening to this program like this or not this morning, they don't care. They just do not care. If they did, they would spend the required money.
Yeah, like it's not good enough on their end. Like, they don't want to spend money to save lives, really, is what it's coming down to.
Absolutely. You know, I've had discussions with people who are pretty senior members of a couple of the different companies, and they basically say they don't have enough subscribers here to their services for any additional investment. I get the business argument, but for me and you paying the bill, one, it's frustrating to pay for something that the service is unreliable, and two, if that ends up being me in a dead spot and I can't call for a tow truck, or more importantly, an ambulance or a fire truck, then you should be justifiably not only worried but completely frustrated.
Well, that just really opened my mind because I came across the same scene last year, but it was later at night. There was already first responders at the scene, but it was like a tragic accident. Like, there was 2 cars in the ditch, a transfer truck in half. Like, it was just awful in the exact same spot. So if I had come across that first, I wouldn't have had the cell service to be able to get them the help that they would have needed. So there's just, like, it was not worth it in the kilometer where I just seen this accident last Sunday. And even with these towers, like, I'm here in Corner Brook, and there's spots here that I won't have cell service. Like, it's not good.
It's not good. It's not good enough. Furthest thing from Nick, I appreciate the time. You say you're traveling in and out for hockey. Playing what kind of hockey?
Well, mostly high school hockey this year, but just junior hockey for the Cornwall Royals here.
Oh, good for you.
For the under-18 team.
How's the season?
We done really good this year. Won the West Coast Division, and but we went out to St. John's and lost. But it was a good year overall. When
you came out to town and played, so who'd you play against in here?
Well, we had, I can't quite remember now, but the last game we had was O'Donnell High School, and that's the game we lost to for playoffs.
Well, appreciate that. Hope you had a great season. Enjoy the playoffs. Who are you cheering for?
Oh, Maple Leafs all the way.
Right on. Big win last night. Let's see if they can get through the defending Cup champs. Good to have you on the show, Nick. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You too, Bal. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Dana wants to talk about Transformers, not the robots. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Dana, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have something I would like to mention on open line. There's nothing shy of a miracle that there hasn't been some casualties already. Nothing short of a miracle, because when the transformer that's above the sidewalk explodes, and it's very close to people's roofs as well. It's just above the roof and right over the street sidewalk. And I don't know, I've asked a lot of people, and I lived in front of a transformer pole all my life, and I've seen several of them blow, and it showers down in sparks. And it's electrical spark, and I'm thinking, because where it blew out of the transformer is probably attached to something, so if that showers down upon somebody, bare skin, I'm thinking, I might be completely wrong. I'm just bringing it to the public's attention, because the Public Utilities Board needs to deal with this immediately if it is a problem. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
You know what, Dana? Look, there's a transformer on the pole directly behind my house. And about a month and a half ago, a transformer blew right across the park from where I live. And you could hear it, and you could see the arcing, you could see the, I guess, what do they call, some of the flammable oils that were coming out on fire as they hit the ground.
And it was a shower.
Yeah, so it happened not too long ago here. Now, I don't know how common it is, to be honest with you. But
it's very common. It's very common.
I didn't know, but I can get some. I can get some details from Newfoundland Power because they were on the scene pretty quickly, and kudos to them for doing what they did. But I was in the backyard when that thing blew.
But by and large, I mean, the entire city, the entire province, I don't know, maybe the country, this has never been dealt with. What I'm thinking that the Public Utilities Board here is really on the hook for this. And because, I mean, you can imagine the consequences of being under one when it blows, or it could catch your roof on fire. It could burn the neighborhood, just one. So, and there are hundreds of them in the city. So the Public Utility Board is on the hook here for this. And so I just wanted to bring that to the public's attention so that there would be some action taken if there is a problem. So
it's an interesting conversation. I will see what I can find out, specifically from Newfoundland Power. Then inside the world of the regulatory body that is the PUB, how do they even consider this? I don't know.
Isn't it almost criminal negligence?
Well,
it's negligence.
Well, it depends what efforts are made to make them as safe as possible.
Yeah, but what about up to this point? Since the beginning, it's been this way all along. And like I said, there's nothing shy of a miracle that someone hasn't been roasted or a neighborhood hasn't burned down. Because I'm telling you, I've seen them blow. I live right in front of a house, right in front of a pole, and I've seen 3 or 4 or 5 blow, and there's a shower. And if it's at night, the place lights up like daytime for a few seconds. And like you said about the one in your backyard area, I mean, it's just negligence, man. And I think it needs to be looked at seriously, and that's why I went on open line with it. And in Deer Lake is the same in Deer Lake, my hometown. I mean, there's places where there are transformers, and underneath it is a big pile of dry grass, and it leads right into the woods. So this has to be looked at, and I think there should be some compensation. I don't know. I'm an ignorant street person, but I just thought I'd bring that to the attention of the entire world.
I appreciate the time, Dana. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
All the best. Bye-bye. Look, I don't know even where to start with that necessarily, but I'd like to know the frequency of some of these transformers. Like I said, the one that blew in our neighborhood, it was quite loud. And prior to it actually popping, what they call an arc fault, it was super loud. I didn't really know what was going on until bang went the transformer. And so those arc faults, that can be wicked loud. And some of the temperatures associated with those arcs, I mean, that's the temperature of the sun. I'm not exaggerating, because when it happened, I just tried to figure out what exactly was going on and some of the dangers posed. But then people talk about health impact, whether it be magnetic fields and risks of ALS and cancer and the like. There used to be a lady who used to call about that on the show years back, and haven't heard from her in quite a long time. But when that was part of the conversation on the show, we looked around as far as we could to look at actual research done, whether it be by the EPA and or Health Canada. We looked at research from the UK. There's no scientific link that's ever been found with the transformer and electromagnetic fields, what that means for your overall health. For some people, they have a sensitivity, and I understand that, and I'm not going to diminish some of those concerns, but the direct scientific links with some of the real serious health impacts have never been found to be true. But anyway, that was an interesting conversation. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Bill Hines. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing?
That's kind. How about you?
Oh, good. Nice coincidence this morning about Katerina receiving a doctorate award for the Memorial. She much deserved, and not only a great athlete, but a great person as well.
Yeah, she's lovely. I had the opportunity to meet her a couple of times.
Yeah, she's very, very personable. I just called to let you know and let the people of Bay St. George know my progress on my sports recognition for Bay St. George. And as of today, we have 12 sports sections completed, with the Hall of Fame plaques up, with the people on the plaques, and pictures and things to go along with it. We have a section done for the ball and street hockey, which Katarina Christian Kuz was involved with. And we also put up our banners. And one of our banners is Katarina Ruxin for Paralympic swimming. Yeah. So the project is going along real well.
Fantastic. I mean, of course, Katarina participated in 5 Paralympic Games. She's got a gold medal to her credit. No question, one of the finest athletes we have ever produced. Been very faithful to being here in the province and training in the province. Of course, has to spend time with the national team like you would when you compete at that elite level. So on top of Katarina, name drop us another couple of athletes that have been recognized with the Hall of Fame plaque.
Hall of Fame plaques, oh my God, Patty, there's 12 of them. And we even got a guy in softball, Gordy Young, and he was instrumental in getting softball going here in Bay St. George. And like in hockey, we got Cal Dunville. Baseball, we got Fonz Jessel, Lou Drake, Jerry Bolin. And golf, we got George Chalk, Kathleen Jean. I can just go on and on, right? It's just amazing how many athletes were produced out of Bay St. George and went along and credited themselves real well in sports.
Absolutely. Well, as a former, I guess, as a rink rat, back in the 80s, it was always a bit of a treat to see the Stephenville Jets come to town with Cal Dunville. He was a beauty. Yeah. Absolute beauty.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was epitome of a hockey player, I tell you. You know, it was blood and guts with him. He lived and died for it. So it was a pleasure to play with him as well. He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, good.
But yeah. So I just wanted to update the people, and the stadium. We're getting lots of great reviews, and everybody just loves what's going on. And the stadium is closed right now, but it will be open in the first week of August for hockey schools and that. So if people want to go up and take a walk around, have a look around, more than welcome to come up and enjoy the pictures and from the past right up to the present, which is going over real well, and our Facebook page is going over real well as well.
I think you're doing great stuff. You know, I'm a big fan of what you're up to, Bill. And you got Cal Dunville on my mind here now. So I know he played for the Royals when they won the Allen Cup in 1986. Did he also play other seasons with the Royals? Because I know he was the long-time captain of the Jets.
Yeah, he did. There was a season or two that we didn't have a team here in Stephenville, and he played with the Royals. Him and Giggs went in and played with the Royals. And, that 86 season, he was picked up by the Royals to go for the Allen Cup. Yeah, I remember seeing that photo because a couple of locals here were also called out. Billy Breen was on that team. Tony Como was called out to play on that team. There you go. And if I'm not mistaken, Cal Dunville is in the top 5 all-time in provincial senior hockey scoring when we talk about the provincial league. Yes, he is. He's I'm trying to remember the numbers, but I just can't right now. But yeah, he's right there. I believe he's 3rd or 4th. I'm not sure, but he's right up there.
Yeah, I go down these rabbit holes. I just can't help myself. So I'm now going to read a bit about Cal Dunville and the 86 Royals.
I tell you, because this project for me has been outstanding for me because of the fact that the people that I've learned that were involved in sport in Bay St. George, and I couldn't believe it. We had a guy from St. George's who was on the Canadian triathlon team, Toby Clone, and guys trying out for major junior hockey teams and stuff out of a population roughly around 30,000 people, which is amazing. I was talking to Darren Colburn the other day. Darren's following my Facebook. And he said, Bill, it's unbelievable the amount of talent that came out of Bay St. George went on and played sports. And he said, I wish we had somebody in Cornwall doing what you're doing. I said, well, good luck, because it's a task.
Sorry, I was just having a sip of coffee. Yeah, no, I just got a bit of coffee there while you were talking. And you name drop DC, Darren Colburn. Can't remember when he was picked, but he was drafted into the National Hockey League by the Detroit Red Wings. He's in the East Coast Hockey League Hall of Fame. One of the very best baseball players we've ever produced. So he's on my list of the best 5, 6, 7 athletes ever, man or woman, ever produced in this province. So DC, friend of mine too, great fella.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah, he called me up, and we were going to get together, and he wants to have a walk around the stadium, see exactly what I'm doing, because pictures just don't justify what you can see in real life. So we're going to have a little walk around and explain to them what we did, and hopefully we'll get more people doing the same.
Keep up the good work, Bill. Keep us in the loop when you have some updates to share.
Yeah, thanks for this, Paddy. I appreciate it.
Happy to do it. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Colburn, he was one of the guys. Every time when we get a chance to go to a Pure Later Cup or go to an Air Canada Cup, Colburn, automatic pickup, right? Because he was a beauty, absolute beauty. I don't think he ever played a game in the National Hockey League, I don't think, but he played in Europe. He played a long time in the A, played in the ECHL, and of course he played his junior, played some of it in Oshawa, but he certainly played more than 2 or 3 seasons for the Cornwall Royals. That's where my wife is from. So he was a Royal. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Sue Calendar. You're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Sue. How you doing?
Not too bad at all.
Great.
Actually, it was a wonderful segue listening to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians being celebrated in their fields. And, of course, on Thursday, Grandfather's song, Let Me Fish Up Cape St. Mary's, will be inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. And that's just fabulous. Really thrilled about it. Really thrilled that Con is going to be doing it. And it's going to be a wonderful evening, I think, Paddy.
I think it will, and I was delighted to hear the news as well, Sue. It's a beloved song for all the obvious reasons. So, of course, I guess Otto's your grandfather.
Yes, Otto's my grandfather. So at the awards, I know there will be children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren will be present.
Magnificent. I truly love that song, not just because I'm speaking with you, the granddaughter of Otto Kelland. Con and the Irish Descendants do a beautiful version, and Dennis Ryan and Ryan's Fancy, that one is haunting. It's so nice. I know the backstory simply because, when this was announced, part of it was, one of your relatives was on the program with the morning show. Talk about the background of the backstory of the song. Do you know it? I'm sure you do, and if so, can you tell us?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, this was, grandfather way back, and talking about a fellow who was in Boston and wanting to be home. But for me, and then, of course, grandfather wrote it some years later, but for me, it was always, I guess, as a grandchild, I remember the song was, taught to me. I was 2 years old. I remember singing it with grandfather all the way up through on Skipper and Company once, I think, at during the Kiwanis Music Festival. It was fabulous. And it's, from a family perspective, it was used in every family ceremony. And we were fortunate enough when my son was married 12 years ago, my son and my daughter-in-law, Con actually did a solo version at their wedding ceremony, and it was just beautiful, Paddy. It's one of those things. I'll tell you this. For all the fighting I've done for this province and why I love it so much, I absolutely attribute it to that and to grandfather. It's in the hearse.
No question. Trying to think about what I read when this was all announced. I mean, I think he spent some time as a mariner. In what capacity, I can't remember. But I know he was a police officer. And was it the case that he also worked at the penitentiary?
Yes, assistant superintendent at the penitentiary.
Okay.
And then my father would have been a chief warder. He was never promoted, I think, until grandfather left. So, sadly, Dad is gone. But, yes, I mean, I think that the song to all of us, I guess, from a family perspective, it just, and I know from a Newfoundland and Labrador perspective, it's the song of our culture, of who we are, where we came from, but it puts in you this drive to protect it. And in this day and age, we have, we're faced with many challenges. The fishery is still here. We still have fishing challenges. And when I get up every day, I look over toward Cape St. Mary's, and it's a very, I just connects us. It connects us to who we are, and it's never left me. And truly why I believe it's in my heart to fight for this province every time, every opportunity to celebrate it, to celebrate its culture and who we are. I just, it's there. And that's the song, along with Grandfather, of course. But that's what put it in me. And so every time I hear it, it becomes that reflective. And there's times, Patty, when I'm sitting home or I'm in the office or whatever it is I'm doing, I'll just put it on because I want to hear it. And it's that type of song, and I'm really, really pleased to see it get its Canadian status, which I think because it does tell a story of this province, one story of course, many, many stories, but it does, I think it does connect people to understand who we are and the type of people we are, and the culture we came from, and the rugged culture we came from, and the yearning always to be home or to come home. And I think it touches everybody. From a Canadian perspective, we have so many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians throughout this country, wherever they may be. And it's a song I know many have told me connect them back home. And so for all of those reasons, I'm thrilled that it's being celebrated, and extra thrilled that Con is going to be singing it, and the Irish descendants there. I think it's just going to be a fabulous, fabulous moment.
I agree. And you just took some of the words right out of my mouth. Sometimes I pretend that I don't want to be cheesy, but truly deep down inside, I love it. So my father was a fisherman out in St. Mary's Bay, so I have that familial connection with it. And I lived that business of being an expat. And it wasn't every single day I was consumed with the thought of moving home, but I thought about it a lot. And I think that's a trait that many people from this province share, that when they leave for whatever reason, for family, for work, it's always that thought either in the front or the back of your mind that one day hopefully you get the chance to move home, which we luckily enough did here back in 2000. So for all those reasons, it's a real reflective tune of not only the province but the people. I think you put it very nicely, Sue.
Well, I mean, it's just, and that's right, Patty. You spoke there exactly right. It is that story, the longingness, the connection to home. And it's funny because even people who were not born here, they come to live here, they become part of our province, and they love it the same way. There's this deep connection. And I think that song just tells a story. You want to be home, and here's why you want to be home. In this case, it's in the fishing perspective, but for many of our people, they went away to mine, they went away oil and gas, they worked on manufacturing lines, they worked all over the United States, all over Canada, North Sea. It's the same thing. They all, at some point, like you said, it's not constant, but it's always there, and it can be touched in a moment, and in that moment, you want to be home.
Absolutely. And we were considering all kinds of options. We were in Alberta at the time, so we're thinking maybe Calgary, maybe Vancouver, maybe back to Ontario where my wife is from. And I can't believe she did it, but we landed on St. John's, and she was all for it, and I think she's quite pleased we did it. Sue, good to have you on the show. Congratulations to all hands, and enjoy the evening on Thursday down at the Mary Brown Centre.
Thanks so much, Patty, and thank you to the ECMAs. I think they're doing a fabulous job, obviously, in organizing, and just can't wait to hear Con sing it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good to have you on, Sue. Stay in touch.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's go ahead and check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line, you know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. We had the call to kick off the show about cell service and the eroding reliability of. So this is an email from a listener. You can buy these, and it's pictured here. It's called a Zoleo satellite communicator, two-way global SMS, text message, and email emergency SOS alerting. That's a mouthful. So you can buy this satellite communication issue about a bit for about $200. Give you cell service anywhere in the world when needed. And with the lack of service here, it's a good idea to have one of these in your vehicle. Boat or ATV could get you out of a real bad jam. So maybe some people listening didn't even know that was a thing. But you can indeed buy one of these boosters. So if you're someone who's, on the highway a lot, if you're out in boat, whether it be an ePerb or this Zoleo satellite communicator, probably a very good idea. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Do not go away. Welcome back to the program. Okay, let me get the clicker. Let's go to line number 4. Morning, Mike. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Patty,
I've been dealing with John Hogan for a lot of years as the Minister of Justice, the Attorney General, the Minister of Health, and other departments in that, with regarding a question that I asked of, is it legal for somebody in government or Eastern Health to direct government money that goes into tills of the restaurants and cafeterias of Eastern Health into the bank account of a contractor? And so far, under John Hogan's reign as whatever, he has failed to answer, and he won't answer. And I'm wondering now, as Premier of the province, will he address the issue of the contracts in Eastern Health, which haven't been read? They are illegal, that's as far as I'm concerned. The whole thing is all scandalous of what's going on in the infrastructure of NL Services now, which was contracts regarding Eastern Health. And this involves hundreds of millions of dollars that's going out of the province. And John Hogan, so far, will not address it. He passes it over to another minister, but when he gets that minister's job, he still deflects the questions, and he will not answer something so important as all of this money is going into a contractor's bank account. Then they're hiring a team of accountants to manage money which should go directly into the coffers of the Newfoundland government. So why was it done? And is it legal? I don't think it's legal for anybody into Eastern Health to authorize this kind of a transaction involving a contractor. And right now, it's Eastern Health Infrastructure is totally in control of a foreign contractor that is out to get as much money as they can out of Newfoundland. And I'm asking John Hogan now as the Premier to come out and address the issues of the contracts, not only there's one big one that is destroying our healthcare services, but also the other contracts involving Eastern Health or NL Services and that, whatever. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's basically an organized crime syndicate that is underhandedly taking money out of our healthcare system, and we're all suffering for it. At the same time, they're getting 8 and 10% raise every year on the gross income that they're taken out of Newfoundland. Like, it's all totally ridiculous. It needs to be gone through a review of these contracts, and it should be done instantly, because the amount of money that's flowing out of this province every day, day in and day out, is astronomical. And we all have to do something. And if people don't believe me about this contractor, all they have to do is go on Corporate Watch and look at the scandals of the Cummins Group. And they'll realize that around the world, this company has scandals everywhere of bribery. The contracts are basically meant for their own profit. Like, they've got it written in there that if the government puts money into their bank account, they charges back the government their banking fees. Every penny that they can get, they're taking it out of Newfoundland. And if John Hogan don't answer this, he is not much of a premier. And as far as I'm concerned, he wasn't much of any of the ministers that has kept this thing undercover, secret and confidential contracts. And it's just totally ridiculous. And it's time for now a premier or somebody there to step up and say, enough is enough. We're losing enough money. They're not allowed to put Newfoundland products into these restaurants and cafeterias or anything. Bread is brought in from the mainland into the health sciences. Like, the things that are done is just totally and utterly ridiculous, and it's all for line the profits of foreign billionaires. Anyway, That's my speech for today.
And I appreciate you making time for the show.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. All the best.
Yeah, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's keep going here. Let's go to line number 2. Headley, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thank you for taking my call, sir.
No problem.
Paddy, here we go again. I'm hearing that the news this morning that that Labrador issues is back into the news again, but I'm not surprised, Paddy. But Paddy, I can get on here and talk to you this morning as well with the number of issues that face us here in Labrador. But Paddy, there's only one solution here that can take care of that, and that is separation. Paddy, I'd like to bring this to the forefront again. There's nothing else that can take care of this, only our separation again. I mean, we've done it over time, and we're faced with it again, and we got to bring separation back into it again to make people listen. Paddy, it's a number of issues that's facing us, and the best thing for us to do right now is to keep our eyes open, to keep our ears open, and listen to see what's going on with Alberta, and we'll take it from there. Because it's nobody's listening to us. So we can do it. We can do it. We can separate from Newfoundland. We can seek. I know it'd be a problem with probably if we look for another province, absolutely. But I think we should go for territorial status. I mean, there's 28,000 of us up here, and we have the expertise. We have the resources. We have potential resources. We have the people that can take care of it. We put up lawyers. We put up doctors. We put up nurses. We put up politicians over time. And Paddy, we can do it again. There's no doubt, absolutely. And I think that's the only thing. That's the only thing that's going to solve our problems and to keep us facing the issues that we're facing is separation.
I hate to hear it. So, do you?
I know you do.
Of course I do. Do you happen to know what the pathway towards that would look like if you're talking about trying to achieve territorial status as opposed to, geographically speaking, it's us or Quebec. And I don't think there's an appetite to be a part of Quebec, even though Quebec has long pretended that Labrador is part of that province, which drives me around the bend. I know it's not very meaningful, but they even reflected in some of the textbooks in that province. And this has been settled, whether it be in 1927, in 1949, 1982, but they keep belly aching about it. So do you know the process of becoming a territory, if that ever became a more advanced conversation?
No, I'm not sure, Paddy, but I'm sure that with a few bucks and a few liars, I'm sure that the law can take steps. Now, when there was a time that I did set up a protest when I was after some pavement in Labrador, and I did mention moving the border. And I did have some calls from Quebec, no doubt, and that was possible. It was possible, and I took some flack from it, but I was told from officials from Quebec that the border could be moved. Now, through some liar and through some extra bucks, no doubt. But right now, Paddy, I think that we should be seeking territorial status. And as like I told you, we have our resources, you know that, and we have potential resources, and we have our people that can take care of that. And there's no doubt. I think the time is right. I think the time is now. I think it's time is to stop fighting with issues, stop fighting with government. Look, here we are again. I mean, look. Where's our government officials? Lisa Dempster, Perry Trump. Where are they? I haven't heard anything that Lisa said about this issue that's faced us with the travel subsidy again. Now, I haven't heard a thing. Okay, right, and rightfully so, because I mean, if Lisa was to put another tag on her back besides Liberal, then I mean, she wouldn't last no longer snowball and fire, because I mean, it's only because of Liberal, and that's not going to change in our area. It's gradually changing a little bit with as our new people and our young people comes on stream, and no doubt about it, because they're starting to realize the things that was being done to Labrador, quote unquote. So I mean, time is right now to let's put this right on the burner, right before officials right now, and say, look, we got to seek territorial status, get rid of Newfoundland, deal with our own issues, and we can do it.
Yeah, I want to try to understand exactly what that looks like, because it's a difference between a province like Quebec and or now, unfortunately, Alberta talking about separation, even though I'm pretty sure that's never going to happen. It's just people are frustrated. So it's ultimately that would become a provincial decision. territorial status, I think, is ultimately and solely up to the federal government, if I'm not mistaken. So Labradorians could want what they want, whether it be through a referendum or whatever the case may be. But unlike provincial separation, to gain territorial status, I'm pretty sure it's up to the federal government. Now, I'm going to have to figure that out. And this is not a new conversation, as you well know. So, I don't know, 20-odd years ago, a Royal Commission noted exactly this, that there was that type of talk coming from Labrador and Labradorians. But I don't really understand the pathway, but I'll try to figure that out just for the benefit of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, Paddy. And I mean, like you just told you, with a few bucks and a few liars, absolutely. And I'm sure that we can make our case well clear, and we'll present it to the federal government. But Paddy, I have another issue if you give me some time,
okay.
And that is the ferry issue in the Strait of Ballal. I crossed that ferry on Friday morning. We left St. Barb's at 8 o'clock. We had some ice there, so it was the trip across was a little bit longer than normal, and it took 3 hours. When we got over to Blanc-Sablon, there was a boat. There was a Quebec boat there that travels from the Quebec Lower North Shore and brings down the groceries and so on and so forth to the wharf. And had that ferry blocked off there for an hour. Now, if we were on schedule, that would leave us 2 hours wait in order for that ferry to get into the dock. Now, like I told you before, I set up a protest on the Quebec border one time when I was looking for a pavement, and I was told by the traffic, absolutely not, and I understand that. Our ferry service right now is essential and is our form of transportation. How can something like that to come in and block off us when we're traveling? I mean, it's I know this is a federal issue, and I call on our MP, newly our MP right now, Philip Earl, to probably sit with his federal counterpart and so on and so forth, and try to negotiate something in that area. Now, listen, just let me say as well, shame on our provincial government as well that they got a ferry that's traveling straight to Ballal, that's leaving Newfoundland and going into Quebec. Now that's another story for another time. And I mean, I should put some shame on them as well, because I mean, we do have ports just on the other side of the border, just that can be developed, and we can go in there. Now, if this is going to why can't we? Why can't we? I mean, like, this is our transportation. This is our form of transportation. And this is going to go on all the summer again. We go around in the harbor of Blanc-Sablon, wait until the boat gets to the dock. That is totally unacceptable. And this goes on with Labrador issues again. And I mean, like, I'm absolutely sick. Petty, can I speak up the link? Because I think you brought up the link as well.
Sure.
Petty, the link right now, listen, we got companies that's willing to put that link across the Strait of Ballal that won't cost the government 1 cent, not 1 red cent. Only they want the government to issue permits. And government got it brought up. They want issue the permits to those companies. Just let me tell you, we got two things, I would say, or and I use too much what I'm saying here. The service.
The connection is really poor, Headley. Are you able to tell me the names of the companies? Because I'd like to follow up directly with them and exactly what that model looks like. So, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm telling. No, I can get it from a good friend of mine. Danny Doomer has told me all about it, and I can get that for you, and probably be a story for another time. But just let me tell you, there's two entities that's stopping this fixed link, and that's Woodward's with a 144 12-year million contract. Okay, 12-year. $144 million contract, 12-year, for that service across the Strait of Ballal. He's one of the companies that's stopping this link, and another one is an industry that's in Port aux Basques, Marine Atlantic. Now, I don't know what effect, but they do think that would take some pressure and some things out of them that I can't see just the same. But like, that is the two things that's stopping the link going across the Strait of Ballal. And like I just told you, Woodward's got a service to provide there across that strait, $144 million for 12 years.
I'm sure the power of people lobbying for one thing or another can be very, very strong. But now that I brought it up today and then you've expanded on it, I'm happy to give it a chase. So, I know Danny pretty well, and if he wants to feed me some information that he has or that you have, and then we can just pursue it in the form of a conversation, I'm happy to do that, because I'm always intrigued with that concept. Even though the updated numbers from what Hatch had brought forward in years past, and then Arup did an updated number, some of the projections of economic activity and passenger flow or passenger volume are vastly different. So is the time it would take to build it and the amount of money associated with it. So if there's someone who wants to build it, like they did with the Confederation Bridge, and have it simply in the hands of a private sector company who would then charge a toll, and what that toll might be is part of the conversation that's never really gotten much headway. But I'm glad you called this morning, Hedley. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, and thank you, Paddy.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
You too.
All right, pal. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Katrina's there to talk about children in care. It was a news story earlier. Over the last 6 years, we've spent approximately $420 million to fewer than a dozen companies for children with complex needs who are in care of the provincial government. Unlike many provinces who do it a different way, and the story was bigger, I think, because for successive years, money had to come out of a contingency fund to further bolster the operations. They call it management deficiencies. What that exactly means, I don't know, but we'll see what Katrina has to say right after this. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Katrina, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Patty. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Pretty good. It's a nice sunny morning out there, so that's always a good start to the day.
'Tis that.
I'm calling regarding the news article that just came out recently about the children in care, and I have kind of some. It kind of brings up some mixed feelings for me. I happen to be a mother of a special needs child, and he has very high needs, and as I was reading through this, to me, I'm like, $450 million spent on children in care. And that was just really striking to me. And when I read through it, is to say it's this is going to approximately a dozen companies, and that the extra money, which was the $22 million, was going to the spiraling spending is for children with it's the spend for respite for children with the most complex needs. So I'm speaking out, I guess, on behalf of the disabilities community to say that, I think this is a good example of where government funds could be reallocated and could be given to families who have level 3 and 4 kids, to minimize the number of children who actually end up in care settings.
So what are you suggesting would be a better use of those monies?
Well, right now, I've been a stay-at-home mom. I have another child who has, he has some learning disabilities, but he's not severe. But for example, like CSSD has to remove the income-based criteria for families. So more or less right now, like if you need respite, and what I'm saying, and I'm talking about, and what I'm trying to say here, there are children who do belong in foster care. I'm not debating that. Jesus, I'm not talking about a solution for all. But I've been around communities for a very long time of kids who need very high support needs, and you're just that and I'm talking about, like, these are my suggestions for kids with very high support needs. So I'm just being clear about that. Like, CSSD has to remove the income-based criteria. Like, I think it should be based on, the needs of your child, right? If you have a child that needs 24/7 care, it shouldn't matter how much money you make, because if you make, I think theirs is $150,000. So if you make over $150,000, like, there's no sense in applying for anything. So, I mean, that's, and in today's world, and the other part, even if you could get respite, a lot of people, obviously, these people are paying $22 million to get respite for these children. So it's very hard to find people so that needs to go away. I think CSSD really needs to sit down and look at, if you have a child who's a level 3 or a level 4 needs 24/7 care, that's going to be a barrier to a family for the workplace. It's going to be a barrier for schooling. It's going to be a barrier for, right now, camps. Like, I think there is one camp in the city, maybe, who can, and it's Easterfield, who can take children with complex disabilities. So, if children don't get into that camp, I mean, then you're left with, trying to find care for a child during summer months, looking for activities, which there's not a whole lot out there, and and especially children who look for that routine and want that routine, and they need that routine. So, I mean, I think if you really look at the $420 million, how it could be broken down. I know right now with the Atlantic Accord going on within education, because again, some of this money could be put into the school systems, and because some children are only able to spend an hour a day at school. That's it. You can see, I hope from the examples I'm giving is that, that there are parents out here, and, make no wonder our mental health we're struggling with mental health, because we have children that we need to provide for 24/7. But then, once, that there's all these companies that are making money off of vulnerable children, in my opinion. But
well, they are. There's no question. I looked around the country at, same thing when we talk about emergency shelters for adults. We're a bit of an outlier here. We're paying private landlords to provide what is, in essence, a government service. Same thing with children in care. And, the money is very real. And you use the number there, $420 million over the last 6 years to less than a dozen companies, $22 million additional dollars out of the contingency fund this year. What's not itemized in the story is exactly what the money's for. Like, what are we trying to solve here with that additional money, and why are we currently doing it the way we do it, period? I think are two pretty good questions. Katrina, I'll give you the final thoughts before we have to say goodbye this morning.
Okay. I think I remember a very long time ago, I worked with a senator, and he asked the government, do you want to pay now or do you want to pay later when it comes to children with disabilities, right? And to me, paying $420 million when, personally last year, I had to beg to get $1,000 of rent for $1,000 for my child to go to camp. And I had to go find that person. I had to hire the person. And it's like, like $1,000. Even if you're paying someone, you're not going to get someone at minimum wage to do respite care, for one. So, yeah, I mean, basically, I was able to get funding for someone for 2 weeks, for my kid for 2 weeks. So, I mean, I really think that the government, like this question was asked to the finance minister, but then it went to CSSD, but it's very, like, the answers are complex. And I think that, there are disability tax credits out there, or, there's a disability tax form that's 16 pages long that will say exactly what an individual has, because it's signed off by a practitioner, exactly what their child's needs are. A, why aren't we using that? B, CSSD does need to review this, whatever they have in place, so that families, with kids who require 24/7 care, get it, just like the $10 a day daycare that was given, that's been given to families, because it's been universally accepted that it's a burden. It's a burden to find childcare. Right.
Well, I mean, 80% of the province is a childcare desert, as they say. Katrina, I do have to get going. Final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thoughts, I guess, is that, I think if you look through that report, they're saying the spiraling spending is attributed to the cost of caring for children with the most complex needs. But the parents who have the children with the most complex needs are not being supported the way they can be and the way they should be. And I think that's my final thought. I think if a lot of these companies or a lot of government departments could look at it from the point of view of it's not just money, it's you need to do things to support a family so that families can go to work.
I appreciate the time, Katrina. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's get to a break. When we come back, Phil has what I'll call an interesting problem with CRA. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Phil. You're on the air.
How are you, Paddy?
Doing okay, Phil. How about you?
Good. I'm talking about a different thing today. I never heard on open line before, right?
Okay.
I had a brother in Old Pelican Home for about 11 years, right? And he got transferred from Old Pelican Home up to Bay Roberts Retirement Home. So I know that staff over there in Old Pelican really well, right? So I've been phoning them all the winter. I tell them if my brother's T4s comes there, I said, don't forget to call me and I'll go over and pick them up. So that was okay. I kept calling them, right? And nobody answered. Nobody knew. And so that was all right. Somebody took T4s and sent them back to the government. And now the government thinks that my brother is dead. Now, I was going to take me about 2 months to get this straightened out. I phoned Ottawa with a lot of information, I told them, right? And I think there's someone, there's people works in the home, they're from other countries, right? And maybe she didn't know that. I've been telling them that if they get the T4s, to call me and let me know, and I'll go and pick them up. They send them back to the government. He thinks my brother is dead.
You know what, Phil? This happens more often than people realize. So it can actually happen at CRA itself. An internal mistake is made. So CRA will say that they have a turnaround time of about 48 hours to rectify things like this. It happens to hundreds of people every year. There was a lady called here a number of years ago. The exact same thing happened to her husband. And it took forever and a day to rectify it. If I remember correctly, we put that person onto the ombudsman. Dealing with CRA can be be a problem, I'll call it. But there's someone out there that can work on your behalf. There's an office called the Taxpayers Ombudsman, and they can be very helpful in trying to rectify issues with CRA as opposed to waiting for them to get their act in gear.
Yeah. Now, I was talking to the CRA, right? And I was on the line talking to her about a half hour. Anyway, she said, we'll send you information. It's going to take anywhere from 10 to 12 days to get it here, right? You got to fill that out. You got to send it back, and then she sent me back another one, so I can take this one up to the Bear Roberts home and get it filled out there, saying that my brother is not dead, right? So I had quite the conversation with him right now, but see, he's not going to. If I don't get this straightened out, he's not going to get no Canada pension. He's not going to get no supplement from the government.
Exactly.
He's not going to get nothing. Yep. So I mean, he got to have this money in time to get his payment for his rent.
Yeah, because that's exactly the problem here. Is it's one thing for the confusion, but every single benefit that you might be eligible for, unless you file your taxes, you don't get it. So
that's it, see?
Yeah, that's it, Phil. Phil, I'm going to give you a number because I think you need a bit of horsepower in your corner here. So I'm going to give you a number to call the Taxpayers Ombudsman. So they might be able to expedite this for all the reasons you just mentioned. Do you want that number?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it's toll free. It's 1-866 586
586
3839.
3839.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Paddy. You have a good day.
Yeah, Phil, let me know what happens, will you?
Yes, I will so, sir.
Appreciate your time. Good luck.
I'm happy. You have a good day now.
Thanks, Phil. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, when that lady called, I can't remember. It was pre-pandemic anyway, put it that way. And the same thing happened to her husband. I think the ombudsman was pretty helpful in getting that turned around quick because like anyone who's expecting a benefit, whether it be your pension or guaranteed income supplement, old age security, the child tax benefit, HST refund, all those things, unless you file your taxes, you do not get it. Get lots of emails surrounding things like the very last carbon tax rebate. And there's a few dates out there that I think has confused some people. So the date was April 22nd, but that was only the date if you had filed your taxes prior to April the 2nd. The question is, if I filed my taxes after that date, will I get it? The short answer is yes. Turnaround time, we're told, is going to be around a month, and that's after your taxes are assessed by CRA. So you're going to get it, and it'll be the same amount that others got, but you're going to have to wait. So those are the dates. If you file your taxes before April the 2nd, you would have got your rebate on the 22nd of April. If you didn't, you're going to get it, but you're going to have to wait. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, there's plenty of time to speak with you. If you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break, and then we're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Say good morning to the Ward 4 councillor in the city of St. John's. It's Tom Davis. Councillor, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
You have a good break wherever you're going. The 3 days or however many days it is.
Just for a couple. I'll be back on Friday.
Okay, very good. Okay, a couple of things. We got the University Avenue neighborhood plan, resident consultations, kind of the last set that we're doing, coming up Thursday, May the 8th at the Community Market on Freshwater Road, and then May the 9th, from 5 to 8 p.m., and then May the 9th from 12 to 2 p.m. at the University Center, 3rd floor. And then there's also a pop-up on Saturday, May the 10th, again, back at the St. John's Farmers Market from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Encourage people in the area, or even anybody, any residents of St. John's who want to have any input into that neighborhood plan to attend those times. I want to thank Walter Harding. He's been out doing some great cleanups. I know he's been sending some stuff over to you as well. There's a bunch of Mount Pearl teens and children that have been out doing cleanups in Mount Pearl. And even though I know I'm the city councilor in the city of St. John's, it's just great to see young people doing stuff. A shout out to Chris Fudge, who's over at St. Patrick's Mercy Home, and he organized a cleanup yesterday. Sheila Laird was there, and also those volunteers there, a big group of people, including associations, New Canadians. It was, again, a great cleanup in that area. They went up Bernie's River a little bit too, so it was great to see. I know you had Bill Stillwells on yesterday, and he was talking about the different stuff stuff with the commercial side of it up in Dunneman's from the Rotary, and a shout out to him and the work that they're doing. I want to say, though, O'Leary Industrial Park is a state, and this is a shout-out to all the businesses in O'Leary Industrial Park. We got to do a better job up there. So anybody who wants to mirror what the Frito-Lay people did, which is the company that Bill mentioned. He didn't mention the company by name, but he dropped in on a business and gave him a heads up that it was a bit of a state, and they cleaned it up and sent him a picture. So I issued the same challenge to the businesses who their back lots, their backyards, and maybe even their front yards are a state. So encourage people to get that cleaned up.
Hear, hear.
Okay, so Mental Health Week this week, and this is maybe going to be a little bit off the beaten path for me, but I want to go there. You know, you and I are subjected to trying to find solutions, listen to all the different perspectives, and trying to find solutions to all these challenges that we face. And a lot of times, society and government, we're all down in the symptoms, and how do we get more upstream? So I want to suggest, and I know at one point, I don't know, maybe it was a year or 2 years ago, a gentleman came online and kind of went at this a little bit. And so I want to not beat around the bush. Something's off in the world right now. And we've got more gadgets, more entertainment, more stuff than any generation ever had. And are people happier? Are they healthier? Are they more grounded? Or are they more anxious, addicted, burned out, and lost? And seems like it's the latter. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are struggling quietly. We don't even know what they're really going through until we see the sad statistics, or unless there's someone within our family or in our circles. And we're going to argue about politics, and we're going to chase the next trend. Some expert comes along with a book or whatever else, but something deeper is falling apart. I want to suggest that although it's not the only solution or the only area to look, I think there's a spiritual crisis, and this is not like about dogma or specific denominations or whatever else, but whether it's all the different religions that exist, or even the spirituality that is baked into the indigenous culture. I really think we've got to bring faith, and again, loosely defined faith, but not as a power grab, not as a sermon, but a real way for people to get through life. It's not about control. It's really about all of us having like some sort of direction, like a compass, some sort of steadying force, a reminder of who we are, what we stand for, and how we should treat one another. I reflect on the fact that, thousands of years ago, that people had to get together and create 10 commandments to tell people not to kill each other, not to steal, not to lie, not to cheat, to honor their parents, take a day off. And we didn't make those rules because we were already evolved back then, but because we weren't. And, the uncomfortable question for me is, have we changed that much? We think we've evolved. In some ways we have. Got all this technology, clean energy, fancy titles. When you strip it all away, when things fall apart, what are we still capable of? And there's this book that most of us had to read in high school called Lord of the Flies. Group of young boys trapped on an island. First, they try and have some set of organization, but without the adults, without any shared moral rules, it falls apart. They turn violent. They lose their humanity, and the darkness inside the human being takes over. And it's really not just fiction. The reason we all had to read it is because it was a warning. Without something bigger guiding us, without shared beliefs, values, faith, even the civilized people can descend into chaos, and we see it today in more subtle ways. The way you see online mobs attack people without mercy, the way consumerism tells us more stuff will fix our emptiness, the way loneliness is becoming one of the top health threats in our country, the rise in addiction, depression, people just feeling hollow. So, we've let go of all the old tools that we evolved and that helped us survive the hard times. Spiritual rituals, community gatherings, prayer, storytelling, singing, resting, and remembering that we're not alone. And they weren't just traditions. They were actually medicine that were developed by wise people who saw what humans needed. And we still see the power of faith in recovery programs like AA, NA, the big ones. They all lean on spiritual. Why? Because it works. So Studies show people with some kind of faith are more likely to stay clean, less likely to relapse, and more likely to rebuild their lives. And the same goes for people coping with grief, illness, or trauma. So when faith is present, even just a little, people tend to heal deeper and endure longer. But too many folks today have been pushed away from faith. Some were told they didn't belong because of who they loved, how they dressed, or the questions they asked. Some were told faith was only for the perfect, and since none of us are perfect, they gave up trying. Let me say clearly, real faith doesn't exclude, it embraces, it doesn't demand perfection, it walks with you through the mess towards healing, it doesn't reject science or wisdom, it works alongside it, doesn't ignore struggle, it grows stronger through it. We've got to stop pretending that consumerism, screen time, or self-help slogans will fix what's broken, because they won't. You can't fill a spiritual void with Amazon deliveries. You can't buy peace of mind with a new truck or phone. And no matter how modern we get, we'll always need guidance, connection, and hope. And that's what faith brings. So I believe we've got to start talking about faith again without embarrassment. We need to build spiritual spaces that welcome instead of judge. We need to support recovery, mental health, and grief care that includes the soul, not just the body. We need to listen to our elders, respect our police, first responders, science, but we don't forget the heart and spirit behind it all. So if you're grieving, drifting, addicted, angry, or just feeling empty, you don't need to be ashamed. You don't need to figure it all out today. But maybe what you need isn't more effort, but more meaning. Faith won't make life perfect, but it'll help you walk through life without getting burned up. Because when people connect with faith, they bounce back from crisis, they raise kinder kids, they live with more purpose and less fear, they stop being just consumers, start being contributors. When hearts change, homes change. When homes change, communities change. When communities change, everything changes. So I want to bring it back. So I'm going to suggest today. Go ahead, Penny.
I loved Lord of the Flies. I read it many times. So it was Jack and Ralph and Simon and Piggy. And I'm not going to expand too much on what you had to say, but what's interesting about that book and how it reflects society is that purposeful choice of taking prepubescent British boys. And I kind of touched on this earlier when we were talking about anxiety and how sometimes it's a bit of a self-inflicted wound. Not all the time, but sometimes. They were paranoid. They were trapped by their fears, and some of which were simply not even real. And I think that kind of manifests itself in adults maybe more so than it does in children, if we're talking about savagery and the way society operates and the roads to recovery, whether recovery we're talking about moral compasses or financial issues or addictions or what have you. I can't tell you how many times I read Lord of the Flies, but I was fascinated with it when I was a child. Tom, we got to get to the news, but I appreciate your time today. Thanks a lot.
Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, obviously, just about everyone listening to this show, if you went to school in and around the same era I did, that was on the list. Everyone read Lord of the Flies, didn't they? All right. Made mention yesterday, not to make a big deal of it, it was just the fact that it was in the news, is that King Charles III will indeed be delivering the speech from the throne when we have had all this conversation about sovereignty, and the fact of the matter is he's the sovereign head of state. So since I made mention of it, I'm not applauding it, it's just a fact, is a ton of people talking about it's time to end the role of the monarchy in modern-day Canada. And we can touch on that when we come back, because I got to get to the news. But that's a really interesting conversation. And it's not as fundamental as people might think. It's not about having a referendum and say, okay, well, the majority think that's enough for the monarchy in this country. It's time to move on. So we can dig into that or whatever you want to talk about. No issues too big or too small. We can talk about it right after the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Well, I mentioned going into the news break that removing the monarchy's role in Canada and the Westminster Parliament operations of politics, of structural government, is a complicated one. And someone said, why is it so complicated? All we have to say is we're done. Well, it's actually part of the Canadian Constitution Act 1982. It says specifically that any change to the office of the monarchy, including severing ties, requires a constitutional amendment, which in and of itself is a huge problem in this country. To open up the Constitution is taking the lid off an enormous can of worms. So, number one, that has to happen. And to even go down that road, it requires the approval of the House of Commons and the Senate. Both have to approve in majority fashion to that amendment. Then you need provincial consent. every one of the provinces must approve the amendment through that requires a vote in their respective legislatures. Then there's a public opinion. There will be a referendum. And I think the threshold, if I remember correctly, was something like 70 or 75% have to vote in favour. That's only after the House of Commons and the Senate approve it, and all 10 provinces approve it. Then there's changes that come with it, whether we like it or not, and I know people are, the polls recently have shown that the majority of Canadians are willing to have that conversation about the role of the monarchy, there's an actual specific role for the Governor-General. Whether it comes with things like proroguing Parliament and or giving one party or another the opportunity to govern. It comes with distinct issues with swearing-in ceremonies. It has distinct issues with calling elections. Now, you can replace that with another entity that wouldn't be a representative of the King at this moment in time, but that's a long road to actually go down. Then people talk about the cost. And even when it comes to the cost for having the King here and for security and travel and stuff, and it will cost money, no doubt about it. But in the comparison of what we've spent, whether it be on the Governor-General or Rideau Hall and all the aforementioned events and security and protection, just imagine the price tag of taking every mention of the monarchy out of every level of government, whether it be in the armed forces or at Parliament or in the Senate and all the respective legislatures across the country. It comes with a whopping big price tag. I think I remember reading something where they estimated the financial cost. It was in the billions. So how many times would a representative of the monarch have to be in the country for us to add up that bit of cost savings, in addition to the constitutional issue that is, not because I say so, but it is right there in the 1982 Canadian Constitution Act. So I know some people, now others are supporters of the monarchy, they're monarchists, and of course there's some natural baked-in reasons as to why some people feel that way. But someone said, you're overcomplicating an issue where we should just fundamentally say that's enough of the monarchy. Well, it's just simply not that easy. And whether or not someone thinks that's a good idea, we can have that conversation. It's the same thing when we talk about things like separation. And I really almost hate myself for bringing this up, but it's getting some traction. And I do think it's absolutely a distinct minority in the province of Alberta that are talking about this. It's a real unfortunate reality that the Premier of the province is stoking those fears or, fanning the flames. But I guess, it's an easy way for politicians to operate in this country. And it happens here in this province, too. When you find yourself in some sort of political hot water and or one particular quote-unquote scandal or another, when it pops up, an easy way to deflect, an easy way to distract is the fight upstream. It happens at the municipal level, and it absolutely right across the country happens at the federal level. So the fight with Ottawa has always been politically popular. Especially when you're represented, in this case, by a Conservative Premier and a Liberal government. It's the easy way to take the conversation somewhere where it's better for you and your base of support. What percentage of Albertans are actually serious about the conversation regarding a referendum? I don't know. But it's always polled very low. And it's not an accusation that the Premier is making things quote-unquote worse, because they're introducing legislation that reduces the number of people that vote in favour of having a referendum to actually trigger a referendum. So it's not people from the outside who are trying to make this an issue, because I wish it wasn't an issue, because I truly believe we're stronger together than we are splintered, like is being suggested by the Albertans. And then again, that's been given a very simplified overview as well. It's not just whether or not a referendum triggers the fact that maybe some percentage of Albertans want to separate from Canada, but there's a ton of things that have to be understood before that even becomes anywhere close to a reality. So I get why people are frustrated, but I really do think it's a real shame that provincial leaders, and not just on topics of things like separating from the country or seceding, it's unfortunate that we've got so many leaders willing to play this political game that is just not even really a thing, but they know it works for them in certain corners, and it takes the focus off of them and puts it where they wish it belonged, and that would be, in this case, with the federal Liberal government. So there are friends listening from Alberta, of which we have many, hear from them all the time. And every time that I say that, I wish it wasn't a thing, or it's more complicated than people are thinking, they get quite angry with me, but so be it. We're probably better served talking about actual facts versus the emotions of politics, because that emotions kind of sidetrack us far too often. And we don't really get much accomplished when it's just that emotional pushback. Same thing with the results of the federal election. I'm not going to say that we're all going to hold hands and everything's going to be okay and pat each other on the back, but the vicious reaction in some corners is pretty wild to watch. And so be it. If you're angry, then that's your absolute God-given right, as they say, to feel exactly as you feel about the results in one province or in the national stage, 100%. Then I do get some people that are quite cross as well, because I'm not going to mention when people think that I've said something they agree with. It's when we disagree that the conversations become important. And it's about the unpredictable nature of what's going to happen in the Oval Office or in the White House today. Pretty important stuff when we talk about everything to do with diplomatic ties, economic ties with the United States, and exactly what's going on here. And this one emailer, it was all in capital letters and a lot of exclamation marks, which doesn't make it any more powerful for me as the reader. But I made mention of the fact that you can anticipate the so-called ambush just for the purpose of the TV cameras. And that was, of course, referencing back to Ukrainian President Zelensky and how he was treated in the Oval Office, and they tried to belittle him, whether it be about the fact he didn't wear a suit and all the rest of that stuff. So between the Vice President and the President, that was just for the cameras. That wasn't anything meaningful. And the same thing's likely going to happen today. Look no further than the fact that the President, when asked about the pending meeting today with Prime Minister Carney, he said, I don't even know what he wants to meet about. So where do you go from that unserious start? He doesn't know what the Prime Minister wants to meet about. Maybe he wants to meet about what the President's been saying. I don't know, just a thought. Let's check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line, you know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. But my fave is when you pick up the phone and give us a shout to talk about whatever's important to you. Do that during this break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Well, someone's asking me to see if I can find it now, to put the information back out there again, because we had a call from, I guess it was the start of the show. Nick called early this morning to talk about the poor cell phone coverage. And so someone wants some information, some of the comments I made via someone's email. So there's something called a satellite communicator. You can buy them. They're about a couple of $100, and it'll give you a cell phone service anywhere in the world when you're needed. So whether it be you're on the highway a lot and encounter these dead spots, or you're out in the boat a lot and don't have the type of satellite communications system with you, you can buy this booster thing. So this one was called a Zoleo satellite communicator, two-way global SMS, text messenger, and email emergency SOS alerting, check-in, and GPS location. So you can find them online. If you simply just Google up satellite communicator, you should be able to find a variety of options. So that was someone who wanted me to put it out there. Out there it is. Let's go to line number 2. Edward, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. I want to make a couple of quick comments on a couple of topics. The first one is I heard this news article, it's a few weeks ago now, about what Hydro, Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, is proposing to spend these hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, upgrading Holyrood and expanding Beta Spare to meet the energy needs of the province. Now, I'm sure you'll recall, Paddy, and most of your listeners probably will. Going back to that nightmare called Muskrat Falls, that was part of the justification for approving that project to go ahead, was we're going to be able to shut down this oil burner at Holyrood, and we won't have that problem anymore because we're going to have tons of electricity flowing down from Muskrat Falls. Well, it seems we all know what happened to that. So we've spent $13, maybe more billion dollars building the monument to inefficiency, stupidity, and a lot of other adjectives I could use, called Muskrat Falls. And yet we still have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade what we already had to provide electricity. I mean, I still believe someone should be sitting in a jail cell regarding this Muskrat Falls fiasco. Now, that's my comment on that, basically. I know there's no answers there. We all want electricity. Newfoundland Power is going to be looked at as the bad guy because they're looking for a rate increase, but no one seems to bat an eye at the rate increases that have gone through because of Newfoundland Labrador Hydro's blunders. But anyway, I'll leave it there.
Well, I'll add to it. So, as a result of I think it cost maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of just less than $30 million for the LeBlanc inquiry into Muskrat Falls. Coming out of it, there was a bunch of recommendations about oversight and independent review, those types of things. But we were told at that time that there was going to be issues from the inquiry sent off for potential civil litigation and for potential criminal investigation. Haven't heard one single peep from either of those entities since. And I'm curious, just like you are, if there's any meat on that bone.
Yeah, Paddy, that's an excellent point. I actually wasn't aware of that, but I certainly hope it happens. But I'm much afraid that that'll just be buried under the heap of government bureaucracy and not see the light of day. So I hope we all remember that when you get your light bill and you're pissed off at the company whose name is on top of the bill, just look a little. And I'm not representing either one of these companies, Patty, but I just know what's going on. And just keep in mind what's causing this increase in electricity. And I think it can all be laid at the feet of Muskrat Falls. And anyway, I'll move on to my next topic now. My next topic, if you got time to let me talk, you mentioned there about the monarchy in Canada and how difficult it would be to rid ourselves of it if that's what we want to do. And I'm sure you know that. But I'll just throw out something that you kind of mentioned, and you really didn't want to go there. But I mean, how do all of the French people in Canada, and I'm mainly talking Quebec, but New Brunswick and all over Canada,
Ontario,
how in Ontario, everywhere, how do they feel to have the King of England being supposedly the head of state in Canada? And I mean, you can sugarcoat it how anybody like, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, back through the centuries, French and England were bitter enemies and fighting multiple wars. And I'm not in favor of Quebec separation or anything like that. I hope it never happens. But I certainly can understand how French-speaking people and French origin can have a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth seeing the so-called King of England coming over here. I really think we should take a look at it myself, because we all know it serves very little real purpose other than ceremonial and just to carry on with old traditions. But anyway, my comment on that. Now, my third and last one, if you can spare me the time.
Sure.
About 5 or 6, maybe even longer years ago, the provincial government, Department of Transportation, they spent many millions of dollars upgrading the Veterans Memorial Highway. They added some passing lanes, and they did improve it. Definitely did. But I don't know if anybody else remembers that when that project was announced, it was clearly, because there had been a rash of accidents on that highway, and there still are. But it was announced by the minister, and I don't know who it was at the time, that the government or the Department of Transportation would be installing rumble strips on that Veterans Highway on both sides of the road and on the center line to try to prevent collisions and that sort of thing. Have those rumble strips been installed? Absolutely not. Another hollow announcement, promise by government, and I'll say it just falls down through the bureaucracy and nobody follows up on it and gets it done. But that is something that would be extremely useful in terms of safety on that road and any road actually that's traveled, but it hasn't been done. And it's at least 5 years ago, maybe longer. So that's my spiel for today, Patty. I thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, a couple of good spiels inside there, Edward. So the veterans, there's some very dangerous stretches there. And I know why people thought passing lanes were going to be helpful, because basically with some of the steep inclines, people get frustrated that the transport trucks in particular are slow going up the hill, and so consequently they take a chance on passing them. So we put the passing lanes there. But what that also did, it was encourage people to drive faster. So I get the sentiment, but encouraging people to drive faster on a dangerous stretch of road is probably ultimately and overall not a good thing. I get it for folks who are going back and forth that stretch of highway and being stuck behind trucks and stuff, but anything we do to encourage people to drive faster is sort of strange, because I guarantee you that passing lane is used for more than simply passing transport trucks that are slow up the hill.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that, Patty. I drive on that road quite frequently, and I mean, if the cops wanted to post someone up there with a speed gun, they could collect enough money to install the rumble strips. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because it was announced, it was said that it was going to be done, and it has not been done. And those rumble strips can save your life if you happen to nod off while you're driving and you veer over the center line. That thing will jolt you awake, and it's so simple to do, but it hasn't been done.
What do you know?
Thank you for taking my call, Patty.
I appreciate your time, Edward. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. Plenty of time for those in the queue right after this. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to the top of the board, line number 1. Good morning, Olive. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm hanging in there, Patty, hanging in there. I just wanted to touch base about the Waterford Hospital. I don't know if really I'll talk about the old one and the new one. It's basically the same to me. I'll start off by saying I'd like to send a bouquet to all the nurses and that are around. I've been with family, friends, in and out of Waterford so many years since I can remember being alive, really, to tell you the truth. And, I mean, the girls, not just the girls, guys, all the guys down there, they got their hands full, right? And they're doing the best they can with what they got, which isn't much. We all know that. And, you know, staffing levels and all this stuff. Okay, now the new Waterford Hospital. I'm going to start off by saying it, and I'll tell you why I'm going to say it. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, and it's all smoke and mirrors. I know the Waterford Hospital better than anybody that can possibly know it. I know the system. I know the way it works. I have had friends. I mean, I could tell you stories that it's just, okay. I can go one invitation. I don't name names, anything like that. There's so many. Okay, I got a good friend of mine. He's been in and out of the old Waterford for so many years. They take him in for 3 days. Now he's after doing things, and when he goes into his fits or his states, or he's not taking his meds, or he overdoses, or takes too many, or he does really bad stuff. And if anybody else, you'd be in the lockup and the key'd be thrown away. Now, every single time something happened to this particular person, I'm the one who has to call. I'm the next of kin. I'm the only one who can handle him. So I'm the one who got to call every single time. The RNC shows up every time. They're like, oh, great, now we got to take him again. And I'm like, tell me they're not going to let him out in 3 days again after this thing. Because, I mean, now every time it got worse and worse, right? Sure enough, 3 days later, out again. And RNC, the same police keep showing up at the same address, and I'm like, and they're like, well, we can't do anything. They're like, we know we're going to be back here again next week for them. Because they do. They get you in, you talk to a doctor for 10 minutes, and then they say, are you going to kill yourself or hurt yourself or anyone else? If you got enough sense to say no to that question, they pay for your cab to get you to go wherever you want to go, whether it's home or somewhere else. And there's no follow-up. There's nothing done, and they're right back in again. And that's what's happening down to the new one. Only this time, it's you got your own private room, and it's all nice and dandy lipstick on a pig. Because now a different friend of mine was in the new one a couple of weeks ago, and he had a complete mental breakdown, completely gone. I mean, like, this involves axes and torches, and I'm telling you, they could have public safety issues big time. This person, okay, he's only a young person, was wanting help. And he has severe problems mentally and now drugs because of it, and he's wanting help. And they sent him back home after staying there for 3 days without any medication. After talking to a doctor for 5 minutes, they said they wouldn't even let him talk about what was wrong with him, and he told them when he left he was still hearing voices. He thought electricity was coming through the ground and was going to get him. He was trying to chop down electrical poles, like, I mean, this stuff, and then they just send him home, and I'm going down there trying to stay with him as most I can, and he's sick, and they let him go, and now what's going to happen to him? Because the other one that I was talking about before, he's dead, and I don't know how many more I can tell you are dead that have been let out of that place. Now, I'm going crazy myself, and I got half a month of drugs on myself and just for a vacation, just for a 3-day vacay, because that's all it is. And I'm so disgusted and upset about it. There is no help. I know everywhere in this province to get help because I've been trying so hard for everybody else, and now I need it myself, and everywhere that I can go, I've been for everyone else. There is nowhere. And 3 days stay. That's all it is. And now I goes into any doctor's office. There's no pamphlets on the shelf talking about eating well and canned food good and physical activity, participation. There's nothing but drugs, and more drugs. That's all that's there in the pamphlets. That's it. And they're pushing drugs on TV. It's gone crazy. Either they're on too many or they're not on enough, and they're just not helping. I know this because my people are dead.
When you say pamphlets about Olive, I'm sorry to hear your struggles. When you say pamphlets about drugs, are you talking about pharmaceuticals?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's all over TV. Everyone knows you can't turn on TV without being contrave, or something. It's like brainwashing, trying to sell it. And the doctors are selling it too. And it's, and I'm like, now it's like, do you want me to go on antidepressants? I was the guinea pig when I was a kid on the this and that, off and on, everything. And it's not, it's not here nor there, all of it. You're putting kids on all kinds of prescription pills, and this is half what's causing the opiate crisis. There's too many opiates on the street because people are taking they don't even need at the time. A lot of people do need it. I'm not putting it down. A lot of things work for different people. But, when you're talking about medicating children, because I'm saying parents are too lazy to realize that ADHD, my son, had and has and can be controlled with diet and exercise. You don't need to be pumping kids full of Ritalin and putting them in front of a video game. And this is half the problem going on now anyway, because nobody's doing nothing with kids. You don't go see kids going fishing no more, going in the woods, doing anything, because there's no one to show them how to do it. No one's taking them. There's nothing in the education system to have kids do anything. They're bored. Half the kids are doing drugs because they're bored. And that's facts. Like, there's nothing right for anybody. I mean, if you want someone to have good mental health, why aren't there programs in place? Take people kayaking, take people in the woods, take people camping, teach their kids how to light a fire, take care of themselves if they get lost in the woods, take them fishing, take them out on a boat. Nobody thinks about doing anything like that with them. They take them and put them in group homes where they're being taken care of by children themselves, And I know this to be true because my kids were put in there, and I know a lot of them went through it. And I've been in court so many times for kids that aren't even mine. And the whole system is gone. And when it comes down to the Waterford and the mental health, it's all a crisis, and it's lipstick on a pig. And yes, it's all pretty and nice, and it's still not helping. And it's all just money gone. Where's the money? Because I haven't seen anything in mental health in years, and I've been to every Bridges of Hope, Dallas Circle, you can name it. I've been there for years, back and forth with everybody, including myself, and it hasn't changed. I haven't seen any money gone in a while.
I appreciate the time, Olive. One thing for sure that I'll take away is we are very quick to go right to the prescription pad for a variety of ailments in this country, well, in North America, period. I can only speak to what I'm familiar with, but you're not wrong. We are very, very quick to put pen to paper versus other suggested potential ways to help people, whether it be with ADHD or otherwise. Now, sometimes it absolutely requires prescription as part of the treatment, but point taken, and I appreciate your call this morning. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you for your time, Patty. You guys have a great day now.
The same to you. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take our final break in the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to the PC member for the Torngat Mountains. That's Leela Evans. Good morning, Leela. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
Yeah, Patty, just calling in now with something positive to talk about. I was going to call in Friday to talk about the interprovincial travel loop where Labrador was excluded. But Paddy, I mentioned I didn't get a chance to call in because I was down at the airstrip there in Nain, and we had a professional hockey player coming in, Soraya Tinker, and she was coming into Nain as part of the docu-series Breaking Down Barriers. But it was a very positive thing for the community. She came in, spent 4 days with us, with all members of the community and the youth and the parents. And she's quite a professional person, a great caliber. She played NCAA hockey with Yale University, and she also spent 3 seasons as a professional hockey player. Yep. And in her early days, she also was part of Team Canada. But when she played with the Toronto Six, they won the Isabel Cup in 2023, which is like the Stanley Cup. So this is a great hockey player, top defense person. She also works as a broadcaster. She's really good with public communications. And she's working with the PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League, as manager of diversity and equality and inclusion. But she came in and she shot some interviews, and she did a lot of things in the community, and it was a huge boost for us. But now she's traveling back to Montreal with 9 young female hockey players. They're going to get to watch one of the playoff games, or 1 or 2 of the playoff games in the Professional Hockey League. So that's really, really exciting. And also they're going to shoot more of the docu-series there. So just wanted to call in and talk about that because it's so positive. It was great to meet her and talk with her, but having somebody of that caliber come in to the community of Nain and just spend so much time with the parents and students really was a big boost that we needed.
I know a bit about Soraya Tinker, as a matter of fact. I mean, she's a Yale grad, so that's a good place to start. She's really represents herself extremely well. I've seen a couple of interviews with her. She's impressive, to say the least. So what exactly was she talking about in addition to shooting something for the documentary? Did she present to some youth or some hockey players or members of the community? What happened when she was there other than shooting some B-roll?
Well, we had several community functions there up at the Jerry Sillett Memorial building, which is like a gym, and it's got exercise equipment, workout room, meetings, conference rooms. She spent a lot of time with the youth, talking about their aspirations, about staying in school. She talked about girls in sports. Especially when it comes to hockey and ball hockey and a lot of the activities. She talked a lot about, I guess, the need to stay in school. But as you hinted, Yale graduate, she's a tremendous athlete, but she presents herself very well, very smart, very intelligent. But Patty, she arrived in Nain, never batted an eye. Everything was gravel, no paved roads, pickup trucks, skidoos. Like for us, it was great to have somebody there, and she was so free and generous with her time. She talked to everyone. She posed for selfies, and like I said, it was very, very beneficial for everybody. And it wasn't just for the girls. A lot of the young boys there, they were very interested in talking to her about hockey, about who she met, in her travels, just talking about some of the barriers that they face. And it's not just about women facing barriers in sports, girls facing barriers in sports too. She's a person of visible minority. And of course, with our Inuit and our Innu in Northern Labrador, we do face some of those common barriers. So it was just, like I said, it was just such a positive experience. Now the girls are gone out now there, and it was very well organized. The principal of the school in Nain is actually a resident of Nain who went to university, graduated, and taught in the school system for a few years, and was able to return for a teaching job in her home community of Nain, Julie Dicker. And now she's worked her way into being the principal. She's a huge role model for the students, and she played a pivotal role in actually getting the Royal Tinker to come to Nain, and also too is the experience was, I think, quite fantastic for her. And she also had two broadcasters with her, or TV crew from TSN.
Nice. I heard Dad's a Jamaican. That much I remember from the interview. She was talking about her roots. Can't remember her mom. Her mom is maybe from some Slavic country, or her roots are. But Tinker's a Jamaican name. I remember her saying that. I can't remember his name or anything. But interesting. I'm glad it was a pleasant visit. She's an impressive lady. And anything else you'd like to offer while we have you this morning, Leela?
Well, Patty, if you had time, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the newest announcement that came in from the Minister of Tourism, saying that the intra-provincial travel loop wouldn't work for Labrador. It's kind of mind-boggling, when we look at an investment of $15 million into the tourist industry. And I think that there needs to be investment, getting tourists to our province and making sure that they have a good stay and that they're able to travel. I am supportive of that. But when we look at Labrador getting nothing year after year, and I called for investment, I called for some similar subsidy for essential travel for Labrador, for Labradorians, and to be told, oh, we don't do that. In the House of Assembly, they asked repeatedly. I think it's very short-sighted of the Liberals to be doing this, because what's happening, Patty, is they're really alienating Labradorians. When we look at us not being able to travel for work, our students not to be able to travel to participate in provincials without these huge cost burdens. When we look at, patient travel, essential travel for Labradorians, and we're not against investing in tourism. We understand it's a big boost to the local economy, but when Labrador residents, are excluded, it really is driving this Liberal government through their neglect and their blatant discrimination against Labradorians is really driving thoughts of separation. Really, because Labradorians are saying, aren't we a part of this province? If they can invest in tourism, why can't they invest in our essential travel? Why can't we look at some of the issues, And so it's really driving a sense of alienation, especially when we look at what Labrador, delivers for the economy, for the tax revenue of the province, in terms of jobs and support. We just got to look at Lab West. The iron ore production there is so critical to the province. We look at Voisey's, the nickel, the copper, the cadmium, all of that, those resources going to, the boost the economy of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. We look at, all the hydroelectricity, Churchill Falls, We look at Muskrat Falls now. We're looking at the potential for Gull Island. Like all these things, Patty, it really, really alienates Labradorians, and there's no need of it. It's very, very short-sighted. It's very, very short-sighted, and I think that everybody in the province should say to this provincial government, this Liberal government, you got to stop alienating Labradorians because they're a part of this province too. It's really, really difficult to look at how short-sighted it is. And it is. It's rubbing salt in the wounds of Labradorians, Paddy. It's just no need of it.
I understand. I mean, I'm a bloody townie. When I read that story, the first thing popped in my mind wasn't about tourists getting an opportunity to travel because they can't get a rental or whatever. First thing I thought, this is going to land with a thud in Labrador. It's the first thing that came to my mind. And I, as I just mentioned, I'm a bloody East Ender. Leela, you've had the last word, and I appreciate you making time for the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Leela Evans, PC member for the Torngap Mountains. All right, good show today. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. Talk in the morning. Bye-bye.